Here at Yami Noob, we have had the opportunity to ride some really amazing motorcycles and to give them away. If you guys remember last year, the Honda Fireblade was a balls to the wall race bike that did not care what meat sack was on it piloting it. The ZH2 was the supercharged naked bike that wanted to literally tear itself to shreds. And the CBR 500R, well, nobody should own that bike, as you know. This Aprilia Tuono here is so balls to the wall in a different way that it got us thinking, has it just gone too far? Are these bikes just too crazy now? Are they really only for the thick-necked, gristle-chewing real boys out there with their gravelly voices? Well, today we're gonna find out with a comprehensive review on this here Aprilia Tuono V4 Factory. Now let's get something straight. This bike is amazing. It is worth every penny of its $19,499 price point. This is a really, really special motorcycle that definitely deserves a consideration if you're looking at the hyper naked category. But we've had it for some time now and the spell seems to be wearing off a little bit. And so we're gonna find out in today's review if it is truly the right bike for you. Now, in case you guys forgot, this is a giveaway motorcycle. We're gonna be giving this motorcycle away on April 22nd. That's when our sweepstakes wraps up. You can head over to shop.yaminoob.co, use the code TUONO4X to get yourself 4X entries. That is one for every single cylinder, firing away in a beautiful V4 pattern over here. And you'll earn entries to win this motorcycle and you will be possibly selected to win it and we will deliver it to you for free. Always head over to yaminoob.co, become a member and get 10% off on all your orders on our Discord server and over on the Twisted Road rentals as well. You're not going to want to miss that. But before we get into our full review of this bike and seeing if it is the right motorcycle for you, we got to take a moment and shout out our sponsor, Ridge Wallets.
Man, this thing's really cool, but it's not perfect. I can fix this. I did it! But you know guys, all of this effort, it just wasn't worth it. You can just click the link down below and go check out everything Ridge has to offer. They've got the best in EDC carry wallets, nice slim design, ready to carry all your cards and cash in a nice RFID blocking package. They've also got duffel bags, backpacks, knives, pens, even key cases, so that you can simplify all of the stuff that you're carrying into a nice slim package. Click that link down below, use the code YAMINOOB for 10% off your order, and save yourself the trouble of having to recreate something that's already out there for you to buy. Just click the link. You're welcome.
The year is 2002 and you're a small little Italian motorcycle manufacturer by the name of Aprilia. I know it might be a little hard to put yourself in the shoes of an entire non-human business entity, but we live in America where corporations are people, so bear with me. You've got this super niche bike that only the most ardent motorcycle lovers know in the RSV Mille R. It's a super sexy bike with a gold frame built out of only the best ingredients: carbon fiber, Kevlar, titanium, and Luigi's mustache hairs. The only problem is Ducati and MV Agusta are making fun of you for not having a naked bike to go with it. Where is your fancy naked bike? You push it very hard, but no naked bike, you hear Ducati say through a mouthful of biscotti. So you said screw it, and you took the RSV Mille and put a handlebar on it and take off the fairings. Boom, problem solved. That pretty much describes the life cycle of the Tuono all the way up to the modern era. The RSV Mille and the Mille R were sold with more top-end power for the track rats, and the Tuono R had all the same features but with a handlebar and a little more torque. An argument could be made that Aprilia isn't really interested in making naked bike considering how much architecture is shared between the RSVs and the Tuonos, both historically and today with the 660 platforms. The theme always seems to be balls out leader bike, ever so slightly revised and fitted with the handlebar. The modern Tuono still has so much plastic that I'm always having to defend its status as a naked bike to the pedantic commenters too lost in the weeds to enjoy a bike for what it is.
But those are just words, and words are for nerds. Let's talk about this engine over here, because that is the star of the show, this motorcycle. This 1077cc V4 in the Tuono is a masterpiece. This is the best sounding engine in all of motorcycling, in my opinion. Whether you're idle or you're cruising above 10,000 RPM, going all the way to the red line, there's nothing that sounds quite like the Tuono. And if you need a reminder, here's a quick sound clip. Now, power-wise, guys, the Tuono is making 173 horsepower and 89 foot-pounds of torque out of this engine, which you'd think is a ton of power, but actually places it mid-pack in terms of the spec sheet warrior analysis of modern naked bikes. The Ducati Street Fighter V4 is making 208 horsepower, the ZH2 is making 197, the Super Duke makes 180, and the MT10 brings it up the rear 160 horsepower. But the big thing that separates the Tuono from those motorcycles is the fact that there is so much torque on tap from basically idle, and the way this thing is geared and set up just makes it absolutely vicious anywhere in the rev range, even in touring mode. Now, we actually ran the Tuono against the Ducati Street Fighter, and no matter where we were, no matter what rev range, I usually was able to get away on the Tuono from the Street Fighter just because it had so much torque on tap. Hell, this Tuono right here even dusted up a Turbo Busa all the way to about 130 miles an hour because it is just so blisteringly fast everywhere in normal world speeds, and the Busa did not have enough runway to actually get up and move. Let me put it to you this way. If all you want is a motorcycle that can crush 30 to 130 all day, it's the Tuono or the ZH2, and at least the Tuono doesn't look like a creatine-addled fever dream of a powerlifter who can't even wipe his own butt.
Now all that sounds pretty good, right? Sure, but think about it like this. What's the speed limit in your local area? Sure, maybe you live in Germany and you've got the open Autobahn in your backyard, but if you're anything like most of the people in our audience, you've probably got a bunch of 55s, maybe you've got some 70 and 75 mile an hour zones, and if you're lucky, you've got an 85 mile an hour toll road somewhere in like 100 miles of you. And that's really what most of the roads look like, but for the Tuono, that's just a warm-up. It'll go as fast as you want it to, and it'll get you there in the blink of an eye. And it is worth pointing out that because the torque and power is so broad on this motorcycle, even if you're cruising at 60 miles an hour in 6th gear, if you crack the throttle wide open, it's gonna accelerate like a weeb running for the last box of Pocky at the anime store. Even if you pop this motorcycle in the touring mode that it has for some reason, it's still not very calm. It's not chilled out. It's always an 11 out of 10 motorcycle. And some people love that, but for other people, most people, it's actually really exhausting to ride this bike on the daily.
But that's just the engine that's really extreme on this motorcycle, right? I mean, it's a naked bike. It's gotta be pretty comfortable. Well, this is probably gonna surprise you a little bit, but this bike has the same frame and peg placements as the RSV4 Superbike. Now, when I swing a leg over this thing, I'm actually 5'11", 32-inch inseam, and I gotta say, my legs are pretty compressed over here, like a real superbike. The only difference really that this motorcycle has over the RSV4 is that there are handlebars here, which are in a pretty comfortable position. This is a bike you could probably live with every day, but for a naked bike, it is pretty dang aggressive. Like I said, full superbike frame, peg placement's really high. It allows this bike to be extremely capable on track. I actually took a 2019 version of this bike out on track, and it's a ton of fun. As you get in the pocket, you can really soar and fly with this motorcycle. It is a ton of fun, but for a larger rider, let's see what Spite thinks. Spite, if you wanna walk in here, let the people know.
Yeah, so throwing a leg over the Tuono here, the Thunder, the Italian Thunder here. I've done a long day in the saddle on this motorcycle in my living with, and the thing that kept coming back to me is how high the pegs were on this bike. You actually do end up riding it around a lot like you're in your, 600 boy, leader bike boy stance where you have one hand on your hip, because this is a pretty long reach to the handlebars. Yeah, you can do it, but being here for an entire day does wear you out. So I like actually sitting back on this motorcycle, and my knees were getting a little bit cramped just sitting on it all day long. This is a pretty extreme street bike, let's be real, and especially when all of the other hypernakeds are so much more motard style. This thing stands out as more super sport than naked bike, which is a little bit odd to me.
All right, guys, we've been a little harsh towards the Tuono over here, but Spite, surely you have something to say about the electronic suspension, right?
Funny you should ask. Who actually needs it? If you're like most people, you probably just get a fully adjustable suspension, go get it set up once, and then you're done, right?
I mean, yeah.
Also, let's be real, for a bike with a touring mode, the the suspension is still about as stiff as Aprilia thinking about their 55th world title here.
It's very true. Aprilia Sim's sitting there, hand with the yellow marker, waiting for the 55 right there. That 54 sticker is getting long in the tooth. Now, the electronic suspension on this bike is amazing. It handles the bumps and undulations of the road so well, on track as well. I actually worked out the same set of forks on the RSV4 when I took it out to the Eagles Canyon, which is functioning the same thing. It's like a magic carpet. It's amazing. But to Spite's point, you should probably save yourself $4 grand and get the base model Tuono. It'll be just as good and you won't notice the difference. I think that the electronic suspension is definitely overkill, but they don't get the fancy paint scheme with the base model.
You don't get the fancy paint scheme, but you do get everything else, which we got to talk about the amazing package that the rest of this motorcycle has with the gigantic brushed aluminum frame here. The 3-piece swing arm. I mean, from the ground up, the bike's bones are phenomenal.
Yes.
And unless you're, Alacia Spargaro, you're not going to be able to extract the value out of this electronic suspension. You're just not. So go get, the base model Tuono for $15,000.
Yep.
And get it set up, and then you're going to be good.
It's a lot of bike for the money. When you're talking about a $15,000 motorcycle that sounds and looks like this, that is pretty special. However, one thing we have to note is the comical lock-to-lock on this motorcycle. That's it. You have at least 2 more inches here that you could theoretically lock it out this way. It is needlessly shallow. And I've seen a lot of people in the comments saying that that's because of some race bike reason. That's complete BS. That doesn't make any sense at all. Trust me, I know race bikes a little bit. They could have easily added a couple more degrees of turn here. We both, every time we're moving this bike, we're like, God, that's it? Like, God, it's pathetic.
Every single time we're moving motorcycles around here, this is the one that I hate moving the most. Because
you gotta do like 5-point turns.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't park it in a shop like you guys. You're still going to encounter positions where you're like in a parking lot trying to chuck a Yui.
Yep.
And you're like, wait, why won't it go any further?
Yeah.
It's a really bizarre thing on this motorcycle, and I don't know why Aprilia just sticks with it. They could figure this out. There's more space here.
Absolutely. And the other comical thing on this bike is, of course, the passenger seat, which looks like a very small little 2x4 that you could sit on. And for some reason, it comes with passenger pegs, even though I tend to believe that the Tuono V4 factory rider rides alone.
Yeah, I can't afford to have anybody on the back.
No.
But, I mean, it's probably just because it was cheaper for Aprilia to put passenger pegs on both sides of the motorcycle and develop a whole new hanger for this motorcycle. But I guess all the extra $4 grand's going right to your suspension, so you can't have your solo passenger peg situation there.
Definitely. So we've said all these things about this bike. I think we need to figure out who it actually is for. All right, folks, wrapping this video up, we're trying to determine who the Aprilia Tuono V4 factory is for. I've got some ideas. I think Spite does too. Who do you think this bike is for?
I mean, if you're a street rider, I don't know. It's tough. Even in the touring package, the non-factory package, the bike is still so crazy aggressive that it's really hard for anybody other than somebody just looking for a mistress motorcycle. Something that they ride on Saturday and then they just put away. It doesn't really make a lot of sense when you look at the packages that other Hypernakeds are presenting. Again, I keep coming back to, this is the greatest sound in motorcycling, but the Crossplane R1 engine sounds pretty damn good too. And the MT-10's cheaper, makes a little less power, it's more comfortable.
It's easier to live with.
Yeah, it's ugly. My God, it's real ugly when it's compared to this.
Very ugly. Made it uglier for the new edition.
Yeah, Yamaha, just give us the XSR1 and then you kill the Tuono, please.
Yes, please. I can really see this motorcycle, like you said, a mistress motorcycle, once a week type of bike. The ideal demographic in my brain is a guy who's like 35 to 40. He wants a very occasional track day toy, wants to flex on everybody, wanted the full Zoot package, is in a place in his life where he can afford fun and cool stuff, and bought it for the sound alone. I mean, that's my big thing. I think a lot of people buy this bike for the pure emozione. This thing has a sound like nothing else, and every time we start it up, you just get chills and you just start laughing.
You just have to sit there and blip the throttle when you start it up.
This motor's absolutely amazing. And yeah, like we said earlier in the video, you could get a little pedantic and kind of nitpick this bike. It's a little bit heavy, it's a little bit overzooted, it's a little bit aggressive, but at the end of the day, this is a top apex predator naked bike that is just ridiculous, and anybody would be proud to own it, but you have to co-sign the fact that it is ludicrous to try to ride this on even a weekly basis.
Yeah, I mean, I said this in my living with. It's so cool. It's so good. Every part of it is just, it's like a fine brushstroke on this motorcycle. And while we might enjoy the sound, like we're rolling by cars being like, yeah, listen to the song of my people. You have a bunch of people in their cars being like, that guy sounds like an asshole.
Yeah, they don't know the difference, right?
Yeah.
They see loud bike, hear loud bike, they're like, oh, get out of my lane, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The more I ride these fast motorcycles and the more I come back, maybe this is just the growing KLR dad in me that I'm still trying to suppress, but I do enjoy the idea of riding a slower bike fast. Mm-hmm. Ringing out something like the Tuono 660 sounds a lot more fun than ringing this thing out because you have to do it at a racetrack.
I will say for short bursts though, fast bike fast is best.
Yes, that is very accurate.
The first 10 minutes you get on track with fast bike fast is awesome, and then you're totally wiped out and you need to pit in and you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired from riding that, get me back on a normal motorcycle. Because yeah, this thing, even with the handlebars, it's still a lot of work to hustle it around. And on most tight twisties, it's like first gear, second gear, and you feel like you're gonna fly off a cliff edge with this thing.
Yeah.
You're like, if I just give it just even a little bit too much, I don't know if I'm gonna make my braking zone to the next corner. Like, it's just always goading you a little bit to like, come on, feel it out. Then you're like, I'm doing 100 miles per hour on a B road. Like, that's crazy.
It demands bad behavior out of you. It's the sound of it.
Yeah.
Because when it's just idling, it idles so perfectly smooth. It doesn't like come up and come down like inline fours do, where sometimes they stumble a little bit. No, it is just like perfectly idling at 1500 RPM, and then you give it a little and it's like, yes, go time.
It revs up so fast.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it revs up fast. I love what it does too. I think it's like an overheating thing or like a idle management system. If you ride it for a little bit, you get a stop at a stoplight, it starts going gru, 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 gru,
Yeah.
gru, gru, and you're like, man, that's an angry motorcycle. Oh my God. It reminds me of like the GP bikes coming to pit out. They're just like, grr, 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 grr. They're like, we don't want to go slow. We just want to be on the gas.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable that we sell motorcycles like this to the general public, and you can go and get a warranty on this thing, brand new, ready to go. I mean, 15 years ago, this was unthinkable.
Yeah.
Unthinkable that you could even get something like this. Yeah, I would rate the Aprilia Tuono like a hard 9 out of 10, maybe 9.5 out of 10. It's amazing, but it is a little flawed in that it might be just doing a little too much, you know?
Yeah.
It might be too big for its britches.
Like, I can completely see this as a 9 out of 10 motorcycle, 100%. But as somebody who is more a street rider than a track day boy, despite my recent baptism by the Champ School folks, the Tuono here, it's just too much, and I have to draw back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I would not be able to handle this kind of power on a daily basis. It's way too much. So I'd probably give it like a 7 in terms of daily life, but if you're just riding it that once a week, man, this is like a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, this is a fantastic motorcycle, and as we mentioned, it is a giveaway motorcycle. So if you want to win this motorcycle and have it ride once a week and understand what we're saying about it, and hopefully you glean the same things, hit the link down below to shop.yamu.co. Use the code Tuono4X. Get 4X entries for every dollar you spend over on the store. Get entered to win this amazing motorcycle because the giveaway is wrapping up soon on April 22nd. And we've got a really cool motorcycle that's going to replace this thing, right?
Oh man, I'm looking at it right now, and
Yeah.
it is so good looking.
You guys are not ready. The simping is going to be outrageous for me for the next 4 months. I already love the thing. But we'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
Keep watching